kept our country together and sent a clear message to those terrorists that they had failed. They had not broken the spirit of New York. They had not broken the spirit of America, and that we are more confident and more proud of our freedom today than we were on the morning of September 10th of 2001. So today, just as you were a part of getting us through those weeks and months after September 11th, we want you to be a part of the rebuilding. We want you to be a part of the remembering. We want you to be a part of the telling of the story of those heroes for future generations and centuries to come. So we have behind us steel beams. These beams will actually be part of the memorial that is being constructed at Ground Zero. And these beams are traveling the country, thousands of people signing, because just as you were there in the weeks after September 11th, you will be there in the decades and generations to come, as showing that this was not just a New York response, it was an American response. And I hope that when the ceremony completes, you will have the opportunity to come up and add your name to the thousands who have shown their respects and honored our heroes and been a part of the rebuilding and reclaiming of the future of our great country. You know, I just want to, at this point, recognize and call up one of the many great Iowans who came through for us, for New York and for America, and most importantly for the families of those heroes who died on September 11th in the aftermath of those terrible attacks. She's from Fonda, Iowa. And after the attack, she came up with an idea to reach out to every family that had been touched by this tragedy and show them that the people of Iowa understood and would be with them, praying and helping as they went through those dark days. She created a project called the Freedom Quilt Project. The Freedom Quilt Project has created almost 6,000 quilts that have been distributed to the families of those who died on September 11th. We have some of the Freedom Quilt volunteers out here, and God bless you, and thank you for what you have done. And we have the person, who came up with this concept and carried through in a way that has touched thousands and thousands of families and all New Yorkers. And I would like for her to say a few words at this time. Betty Nielsen. Betty, God bless you. Thank you. The Freedom Quilt Project is something that has touched all of us enormously.
Thank you, Governor Pataki, and thank you so much for having me here today. I'm here because although I didn't lose anyone on the attack, my life changed on September 11th of 2001. On September 11th, I was glued to the television watching the event unfold, and I couldn't stop thinking of the number of people that had died that night. I couldn't sleep thinking of thousands of senseless of death that occurred. 3,000 people is 4 times the size of my town of Fonda, Iowa. With total faith in God, my country, and community, and a lot of determination, I decided I wanted to do something to help the families of those that died, and I realized that quilts were something that might help comfort the families. I never realized how big Freedom Quilt Project would become, or the support that I would receive from my community. Everyone I asked wanted to help. It began with a small group of people in my parish, and soon it got larger and larger and larger. We started with money donation, fabric, quilt blocks, and they were sent from men, women, and children all over the world. Although we were originally thinking of making just 5 quilts, I realized that was not enough, so we continued to make quilts. One of our first trip out east to New York was in December 2001. When we went to New York to deliver the quilts to the families at Pier 94, we had 1,554 quilts to give to the families. I'll never forget the family's expression. Nor how the ministers form a circle around us and pray that we will continue this project. What broke my heart was when we noticed how the families embraced their quilts. And after we had given all the quilts out to the families, we went to Ground Zero. I witnessed the devastation of Ground Zero. And at that point, my heart was broken for the families. I felt that night that we had to continue, and we were determined that we were going to continue this project. Now, 6 years later, I look back and I realize it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Senator Harkin and the State Director, Diane Liepa, who made it possible for us to be there at Pier 94. Once they opened the door for us, other doors were opened. Many people had a hand in this project, and without Freedom Quilt, without their help, Freedom Quilt would not be able to give out 5,693 quilts to family members. Some of the families that actually helped us with some of the 9/11 families, like Bill Doyle and Mary Fitchett. FedEx, dedicated circles of quilters of all ages. People having faith in the project that continue to give us donations so that we can continue to give comfort to the families. My husband and family who support me all the way. To the Freedom Quilters that worked so hard to help me continue to bring comfort to the families, requesting to please not to be forgotten, including our fallen soldiers' families. I decided to donate the last original quilt that started the project Freedom Quilt to the National September 11th Memorial Museum because I want future generations to learn about the compassion that was displayed by this country in the aftermath of September 11th. War paint was all of us that day. We were united and we were ready to defend our country. It is my hope the visitors to the museum will understand how a group of people from a very small Midwestern town can come together and care about people across the country. I would like to ask Chief Curator of the National September 11th Memorial Museum, Jan Marie, to join me at the podium.
Thank you so much, Betty. On behalf of the National September 11th Memorial Museum, it's a privilege to assume custody of this very special quilt, pedigreed maybe above others because it's one of Betty's firstborn, and we promise to be deserving parents. Customarily, curators mark this rite of passage from the private to the public by putting on white gloves, which signals our promise to care for in perpetuity and protect the integrity of the object that's being inducted into the permanent museum collection. So with these gloves, I'm signaling that transition, and actually it's chilly enough I might keep them closed. In building a collection for the National Museum that will chronicle the history and legacy of September 11th for future generations, our foremost obligation as a museum is to secure irrefutable evidence of the progressive horror of that morning. We're doing that by gathering a comprehensive survey of eyewitness artifacts, images, film footage, voice recordings, and other primary accounts attesting to what happened, when, where, to whom, and by whom. To help contextualize the outdoor memorial marking where the towers stood, which is hallowed ground, the museum will safeguard materials and memories evoking the irreplaceable human lives claimed that day in New York and Washington, Shanksville, and in the skies over the Northeast. Concurrently, we're compiling testimony from survivors and residents and documenting the experiences of first responders whose courage and grit during these spiraling emergencies have inspired the world. However, our interpretive mandate also embraces the story of second responders, everyday citizens whose compassion and generosity and resourcefulness became hallmarks of the history of September 11th that really began on September 12th. Those able to bring skills and equipment and fierce resolve to the immediate tasks of the rescue and recovery effort were in many ways proxies for all Americans who, if they could have, would have volunteered in any way possible